group and Instagram. I'm going live again in 2 places, so bear with me while I get used to this. And my arm's just sticking out because I am actually on holidays and I didn't look at the time. I got so caught up with the kids that I didn't realise it was already 2 o'clock. So thanks for joining. Now, Q&A today. I was going to chat about what I got cut off from last time. Oh, you can see my phone there. So obviously last week I was talking about the comparisons between some foods from some questions that we had. So I was going to continue on with that today. I think pasta and rice were the other 2 things that I had questions around. And then I also wanted to touch on some questions that I have been getting around FODMAPs again, and IBS and those sorts of things and how to treat it. So, first of all, pasta. So the different types of pastas that you can get and which is the best one. The pasta, so the most common ones that I get asked about and the most common ones that are in our supermarkets and things, regular white pasta or egg pasta, the traditional pasta. The other one the other ones that are out there, there's whole wheat pasta. You can now get high fiber, high protein white pasta, and then there's also gluten-free but still flour based, so gluten-free flour pasta. And then finally, the other one that I tend to look at as well is the pulse pasta. Which actually isn't made from flour. It's made from ground up pulses. So it really depends what you're looking at and what else you're putting with pasta. So ideally, and I know my good Italian friend is going to disagree with me here, but we shouldn't be having more than 1 cup of pasta in a sitting, maybe 1.5, depending. For a general person who's not an athlete, who's not burning off lots of energy, in terms of carbohydrate portions, you don't need more than 1 cup of cooked pasta at a time. So, and that's any pasta. That's gluten-free, whole wheat, whatever it might be. So if you go back to the balancing healthy meals, so you've got half your plate should be vegetables, 1/4 of your plate should be made up of protein, and then the other 1/4 of the plate should be made up as your carbohydrate portion. 1/4 of a plate is the equivalent to 1 cup of pasta, or 2/3 of a cup of cooked rice when I get to the rice portion. So if we're splitting things up that way, whatever you're having the pasta with should have quite a bit of veggies with it. So whether you're having it as a side salad or you've managed to mix the vegetables into whatever sauce you're having, that's going to help balance things out well. We can upset our gut if we have a big meal. And pasta's very easy to eat a lot of. Because if we eat it quick, it takes a while for our brain to realise that we are actually eating. So, and I'm trying to switch between the 2 cameras here. That's where making it a limit of having no more than 1 cup of cooked pasta at a time, it's going to prevent you from overeating, and it's also going to not give such a big load on your gut, to give your gut more things to do. The other thing, so I tend to mix it up. So we have whole wheat pasta, we have pulse pasta. If we're going for if we're having a more plain sauce, so not a bolognese, sometimes I just put a few veggies and some Parmesan cheese and a bit of garlic, then I'll go for a pulse-based pasta because I know that the kids are still getting, and myself, are still getting a good serve of fibre and some protein as well within that, because there's natural proteins in that pasta. It's also gluten-free. So anybody who is not able to tolerate gluten or celiac, then that's a good option to have as well. And whole wheat pasta, I tend to use that if I'm making a pasta bake because it takes a lot more moisture to cook as well. So I can throw all the veggies in the pasta bake and make it really saucy, and then all the wheat the pasta gets absorbed. All the juices that are coming out of the veggies get absorbed into the pasta as well. But we regularly also just have plain white pasta because it is actually low GI. So because of the way that it is made, I believe, it is a low GI option. So plain white pasta is fine as long as you are having a good serve of veggies and a good serve of protein with it as well. Obviously, everyone's at different stages on these journeys, on the health journey and all that sort of thing. If you aren't having that whole wheat pasta and you've got a different alternative for your carbohydrate source, that's fine too. The next question I had was around rices. So, again, there's a few. White rice, there's lots of different varieties, obviously. The arborio, basmati, jasmine rice, long grain rice, short grain rice, all those sorts of things. And then brown rice as well. So, and then we've also got all the mixtures of rices too. So often you'll see in the supermarket shops now, plain pastas, particularly in those cooked pre-cooked packages, plain pasta, plain rice with quinoa or something else like the red rice, black rice, all those sorts of things. Or plain, just straight pre-cooked rice as well. So what we tend to do, again, we mix between always basmati or brown rice. And the reason that I do that is because basmati is low GI. Arm's getting sore. And that's really important for me because I have type 1 diabetes. So I try and make sure that I stick to a low GI diet. If, for example, and again, no more than sort of 100 grams cooked or 2/3 of a cup. Once it's been cooked. It's not a lot of rice. It's about the size of your fist, slightly less. Use that as your guide as well. And again, whatever we're having with rice, I always make sure that there's about the same amount of protein compared to rice and then double the amount of veggies. So something that I regularly use rice in would be something like chow mein. And there's about half a cup of rice that goes into that. And I always make sure that I've got at least double the vegetables on the plate in the meal compared to my protein and carbohydrate source. So that's how I balance it out, and how I guess it helps to keep everything in check then, so that makes sure that you're getting all the right nutrients that you need. The other thing that I've been doing, and I think I put it in the group a couple of, it might have been a month or so ago now, is adding buckwheat. So if I do cook rice from scratch, and if it is basmati, I'll now often add buckwheat, so about the same amount, half rice and half buckwheat, into the same pot, and it cooks about the same. And the kids actually really like it, don't notice the difference. The bonus with buckwheat is it's high in fibre and also high in protein. So that's another really good option to add in. I will pop into the group, I might do a post on Instagram about buckwheat. If we haven't already done one, I'll check that. And then I'll pop into the group some information on buckwheat as well. So the other day I had no rice, I'd run out, and I ended up just cooking buckwheat for my son to have with he loves tuna and rice and carrot and cucumber and lemon juice. So I just used buckwheat, and he did not even mention it. Flavor, like some people find, I definitely find quinoa has a really strong flavor, doesn't have a strong flavor like that. So that's another good option, and that lowers the GI, gives you more protein, and also keeps you fuller for longer, because that GI has an act to play there too. The other thing we do, so I alternate between basmati rice, brown rice, and then also, hi Sarah, nice to see you, I haven't spoken to you for a while. Brown rice, basmati rice, and also buckwheat with brown or white rice. And I try not to, but for convenience and ease, I tend to use the packet rices if we're in a hurry. I have noticed though that sometimes the brown rice is actually just short grain brown rice and not basmati brown. So if you can find brown basmati, try and go for that. Oh, Sarah's got a question around what about rice noodles and soba noodles? Yeah, good question. So soba noodles are actually buckwheat based noodles. So they're a Japanese noodle, and you'll see them in the supermarket. There's not many options. There's one packet usually. And they actually, when I first saw them, I thought they were chopsticks. I'll put a screenshot up in my stories on Instagram, and I'll do a post in the group. But they actually look like chopsticks. So they're thin and long, about the same length as a chopstick. But they are usually, I think it's about 30% buckwheat based. So if you're a person that likes noodles or 2-minute noodles, this is often a really good option to switch over to. Rice noodles, again, are really high GI. So if you can get fresh rice noodles, apparently these are much lower GI. And again, I'm assuming it's because of the way that they are processed and cooked and put together, that the GI is then lower for them. I sometimes use them instead of rice with stir fries. Yeah, soba, I would try and go for soba noodles as an option if you're going to use noodles in a stir fry instead of rice. And again, it's because of that higher buckwheat content. So they're more whole grain than just plain rice. Rice is one of the most easily digestible carbohydrates that you can get. White rice, so that medium grain, white, jasmine, that sort of rice is so quickly digested and absorbed into our bloodstream that it can just send our blood sugar straight up, and then your body's then knocking on the pancreas to try and release more insulin to try and bring your blood sugars back to normal. So it can often give you, you can often get a crash type feeling after eating white rice, particularly if it's a really big amount. Again, if it's not a big amount, it's not going to make that much of a difference, as long as you've got that good balance of protein and veggies as well. Oh, this is hurting my arm. So thanks, Sarah, for that. So the other thing I wanted to quickly touch on is I had another question around FODMAPs and what's safe on a IBS diet, and somebody who's been following FODMAPs for quite a long time. The low FODMAP diet was never meant to be a long-term diet. It was only ever meant to be diagnostic, meaning that you should only be following the strict low FODMAP diet for 4, maximum 6 weeks. I sometimes don't even need that long with people when I'm doing that, and I do it less and less these days now with the hypno involved with my with the same services that I provide. So there's been studies that have shown a decrease in gut microbiome efficiency. I'm not really sure. I should look into what they're actually measuring. But showing that it is detrimental for the gut health, for your gut health, to be on a low FODMAP diet for longer than 4 weeks. So I believe the changes occurred as early as 4 weeks on the gut microbiome for somebody who was on a strict low FODMAP diet. So you've got to think, some people, and in the past this used to happen a lot more, it happens less and less now, but I used to see people who would come and see me for a low FODMAP diet as per their doctor's recommendations. They would then be on that low FODMAP diet for, some people had been on it for 6, 8, 12 months even. So you've got to think about the potential effect on the gut health and your gut microbiome if you've been on such a restrictive diet for so long. The whole point of FODMAPs is that they feed the good bacteria. So they also potentially feed the bad bacteria, which is why you're trying to take them out initially anyway to get that balance right. But if you keep them out for a really long time, your gut has to then find another way to get fed. So, excuse me. And to be honest, with over the last 6 to 12 months, the amount of people that I have seen that have needed to stay on a low FODMAP diet, or have even needed to keep any of the FODMAPs out of their diet, has been minimal. So people are coming to see me with things like really bad bloating and wind and alternating constipation and diarrhea. We cut everything out for 4 to sometimes 6, but usually 4 weeks. They get really good symptom management, and then we start to reintroduce things week by week just to check what they could be reacting to. Most people, by the end of the 8-week reintroduction, have barely reacted to any of the things that we are reintroducing. Now, some of these people are combined with, they've also combined it with their hypno, so we're doing the hypnotherapy alongside reintroduction of those foods that could trigger gut issues. And that could be the reason that they don't need to keep these foods out long term. But some people haven't done any, and they're finding that they're able to still tolerate these foods when they're brought back into their diet in the measured amounts. The trick then is keeping them in your diet for those measured amounts so that you start to bring your threshold for symptoms up, and you keep it there so that you're not then getting problems long term. If you keep those foods out of your diet for a really long time, your gut will react to even minute amounts of things that you didn't react to prior to the diet beginning. If this is happening to any of you, please reach out to a dietitian or a gut-based hypnotherapist to try and help you get back on track with that, because it's not you don't have to live that way. It's not an issue. It's definitely something that can be changed and managed and improved. And that's what it's all about, right? Like, we're all trying to improve your quality of life with your diet, particularly if we're looking at IBS, because IBS is a functional gut issue. It's not actually a chronic disease, meaning that it doesn't cause changes to the gut like inflammatory bowel disease may. I am going to leave it there. Sorry I was late, everybody. I am still last day of school holidays, and I'm still in holiday mode. Next week I will be back on and ready to go at 2 PM on the dot. Thanks for watching. Bye.